A massive bank has just confirmed that trillions is coming into Bitcoin much faster than most people think. This $2 trillion bank is one that's been quietly doubling their Bitcoin exposure every quarter since 2024, but they're not alone. A committee overseeing roughly 144 trillion of capital has called for the banking industry to rethink their Bitcoin regulations. Not just the, private banks. We're talking central banks here. And we got another interesting story coming out of the U.S.'s central bank. The Federal Reserve government just proposed that all Fed staff should be allowed to hold Bitcoin, because why would you trust someone to regulate Bitcoin if they've never touched the thing? Anyways, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's dive into the source material here. And of course, I'm not alone. We got Nika over here, our fearless leader. And of course, Shane Crockett, our guest today, which is the creator of bitcoinmath.org. Guys, I think you guys are going to really enjoy the culture at the end of the show. We're talking about your favorite topics, how to retire on Bitcoin. We got a new retirement calculator for you guys, so should be a fun one. Anyways, I'm over here on Reuters, guys. Interesting headline. So the headline is finance industry bodies call for changes to crypto rules for banks. What exactly is going on here? A group of finance industry bodies is calling for a rethink on looming regulatory standards that they say will make it difficult for banks to participate in crypto markets. The Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, which compromises regulators and central banks from the world's main financial centers, agreed a set of standards in 2022 for how banks should manage and disclose risk around their exposure to crypto assets. And in an open letter to the committee, various finance industry groups said that the crypto market has changed since 2022, making the proposed standards too conservative. While the crypto markets remain a small part of the overall financial system, it has grown rapidly in recent years. Honestly, guys, the takeaway from this is probably ever since Trump embraced Bitcoin here, or rather the crypto market at large, they realize, maybe the 2022 regulations where we're really trying to clamp down on everything aren't going to hold any water, especially as the U.S. starts embracing Bitcoin. And you start to see that every administration in the U.S. is way more pro-friendly or more pro-Bitcoin than they used to be under the last administration. So things have fundamentally shifted here, and it is all because of the United States and Donald Trump himself. So, quote, the crypto asset standards restrictive qualification standards combined with otherwise punitive market and credit risk capital treatments effectively make it uneconomical for banks to meaningfully participate in the crypto asset market. And they propose a temporary pause to this. We all know there's nothing more temporary than, a government mandate. Though this isn't a government. This is the committee overseeing the Bank of International Settlement. So I'm going to pause here because we do this. I have more for this, guys, but let's take a pause here. And actually, today I'm going to switch this up a little bit. I'm going to go to Shane here because he was telling me before the show he used to work in banks. So I'm guessing he's got a little more interesting take from this because he was in the heart of the beast. So Shane, thanks for coming on today's show. What's your initial thoughts hearing this news report coming out? This actually came out last night, but, fresh off the docket, it looks like the Basel Committee wants to change the crypto regulations. It's, very, very coinkadinkle here of all of the things that are happening right now. It's almost like they want your Bitcoin now. It's almost like it's okay for them to want your Bitcoin. Anyway, Shane, what's your thoughts when you hear this headline?
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate you guys having me. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the banks, they see that there's money that's being left on the table because these rules are so egregious that nobody's going to give them their assets. No one's going to hand over their Bitcoin to a bank who has these kinds of rules, restrictions. And so the banks are going to struggle to ever adopt any of the kind of trading, custody, lending, or other services where they can actually profit from holding the Bitcoin. So like it's this sort of, like the snake eating its own tail where they make these rules that they think are actually protecting people, but all it's doing is prohibiting them from ever truly getting involved. And I think they're starting to realize that the people at the top of the food chain are saying, hey, we're missing the boat. we're not making money on this because these rules are prohibiting people from engaging with us. We need to relax them and actually encourage people to partner with us, trust us, and let us engage in more of these services.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, there's an interesting comment here by Jocko, and he goes, "It's an attack." What is this? Is this a new attack where they just want to take the Bitcoin from you? I think this is just the old attack. They just want your Bitcoin.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, you know, I work in the space and I work with a lot of institutional lenders, and I get to, you know, partner with those firms, kind of understand their terms, their rates, their structures, things that they're trying to do to get exposed to Bitcoin. And it does seem like some of these companies, they do want to acquire the Bitcoin. Like, that's not necessarily what they're writing in their thesis, in their term sheets, et cetera. But, you know, some of the rates and the terms and the other things that are in these agreements does make you kind of scratch your head and think, well, are they just hoping for a certain number of defaults so they can actually get the Bitcoin? And, you know, to see that traverse across the traditional landscape into banking, who knows, right? You could be right. They could just be out for the Bitcoin. Like, that's an absolute possibility.
Yeah, we have entered a new era in you know, Bitcoin scamming, where, you know, you sell a shit coin just because you want to acquire more Bitcoin. Now they're like, let's propose some good rules because we want the Bitcoin as well. Anyways, Nico, what's your thoughts when you hear this headline?
Yeah, I mean, if you can't beat them, join them. Like, that's where I think this is where this is heading. Andreas Antonopoulos, when he used to be dropping Bitcoin content back in the day where there was no Bitcoin content, like, he was talking about the 5 stages of grief, right? And I'm going to pull those up because I think it's very fitting to kind of, you know, frame out where we are right now in terms of the legacy financial system and how they see Bitcoin, specifically not so much banks, because it seems like they've embraced it. Even Jamie Dimon is dragging his feet saying, listen, I don't like it, but if our customers want it, we're going to offer it to them. And then, you know, the U.S. government is fully embracing it with the Trump administration. So the 5 stages of grief are denial, right? Anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So, and I'm going to kind of like point out where everyone's at, right? So where is the executive branch of the United States? Acceptance, right? But they went through the bargaining, they went through depression, they went through anger, right? That was Operation Choke Point 2.0. You saw all these, you know, all these different types of attacks and all this stuff. And then the bargaining, like, you know, yeah, I mean, the ETF is too dangerous. It's just not a regulated market, whatever. The SEC was dragging his feet, and then BlackRock had so much influence that, you know, they were able to, you know, jam it through in January of 2024. Where I think the Bank of International Settlements is, and the IMF, they're still in the very beginning of the 5 stages of grief. They're in the denial and the anger phase. I would say maybe the IMF is in the bargaining phase, and then they went back to the anger phase, right? So, you know, depending on the institution and the government, they're all in these different stages of grief, realizing and coming to the conclusion that Bitcoin is here to stay. It isn't going anywhere. And if you can't beat them, join them. Even President Vladimir Putin, you can make an argument he's one of the most powerful men on the face of the planet. He's even saying in press conferences, it's in Russian, of course, and they translate it. He's like, you can't get rid of Bitcoin, right? It's here to stay. So this is what's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years as the disintermediation or the separation of money and state accelerates, right? Governments, institutions that are used to having this monopoly and this control of money are going to go through these 5 stages of grief, and they can't get rid of it because of Bitcoin's decentralized characteristics, right? So that's what's happening right now, and it's glorious to see. It's very empowering as a Bitcoiner, because if you guys have been here for a couple of years, I mean, Opti and I here 2011 in that era where things were a whole whole lot more uncertain. But I mean, still back in 2016, like, it was the Wild West. The U.S. government was not a fan of Bitcoin. Big banks were not a fan of Bitcoin. No one was a big fan of Bitcoin, including Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor was not a big fan of Bitcoin, right? So, you know, eventually the better money wins. And that's what's happening with Bitcoin. And the reason that it's happening with Bitcoin is because Bitcoin proves a couple of things. What does it prove? It proves that money can exist without government. Not only can money exist without government, money is better without government. That statement, what I just said right there, is a very, very how do you say this? It's, you know, it's extreme, right? Could you imagine, you know, like that strikes that brings fear into the hearts of politicians, right? Because a lot of the power that politicians have is from the power of the money printer. And what happens if all of a sudden they have to actually start doing good by their constituents? Because if not, they get elected out of office, right? Do you think it's a coincidence that the most popular president in the Americas, Nayib Bukele, made Bitcoin legal tender and all of a sudden he's the most popular? No, what you have is you have an alignment of incentives. But the people that have been benefiting from this crony system, this crony capitalist system, of course they don't like Bitcoin. Bitcoin, it literally puts up a mirror. It highlights the fraud. It highlights the inefficiencies. It highlights the hypocrisies, right? So yeah, I think you know, they're going through one of the 5 stages of grief, and it's glorious to see. I think they're in the bargaining phase, to be very specific, Opti, because as you very astutely pointed out in the very beginning on yesterday's episode, we pulled up a chart. We pulled up an image describing that BIS is like, look, there's different types of Bitcoin. There's like clean Bitcoin, then there's tainted Bitcoin, you know, and then now they're like basically, you know, they're more open-minded about it, right? That's called bargaining in the 5 stages of grief. You know, after this is depression. Maybe Augustin Carson, maybe this is part of the reason that he quit. He was like, I can't beat Bitcoin. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on all this, brother?
No, yeah. I mean, and going further, I actually like that you brought the 5 stages of denial up here, because I think we are getting to the stage of acceptance from the Fed. And that leads me to the next story I have here, which is another interesting story here. Fed's Bowman suggests allowing central bank staff to own a small amount of crypto products. So the Federal Reserve's top regulator official suggested on Tuesday that central bank staff should be permitted to own small amounts of crypto products, arguing experience would better inform their work policing activities in those financial markets. Fed Vice Chair for Supervision, Michelle Bowman, said easing restrictions on staff investments may also help recruit and retain expert bank examiners, and, quote, de minimis holdings of crypto and other digital assets would help staff develop a working understanding of these products. Going further, she goes, quote, there's no replacement for experimenting and understanding how that ownership and transfer process flows, she said in prepared remarks delivered to a crypto conference in Wyoming. I certainly wouldn't trust someone to teach me to ski if they've never put on skis, regardless of how many books and articles they have read or even wrote about. Okay. First takeaway is, I mean, it sounds to me like the Fed just admitted that they don't know what the hell this Bitcoin thing is. And maybe we should use it so we can understand what this thing is we are regulating. And then on the second one, it does seem like a, acceptance of this idea. Hey, this isn't going to go away. So we should probably, at the very least, interact with this system versus sitting on our high hill and being like, this thing is bad. This thing should never be used. This is for criminals and money launderers. Now they're like, the U.S. is embracing it. We should probably use it. We should probably allow our members and staff members to use this, because this is where the world is going. And if we're going to be, the head regulators here, or one of the central banks in the world that is basically mounted with the job of combating this stuff, of course, they're not a regulatory body, but they understand where this is going. It does seem like the, stablecoin, aka Bitcoin dollar thesis is playing out in real time. They're like, look, we're going to interact with this Bitcoin thing in one way or another. We should probably at the very least use this in some way. And then the second one, the second point, or maybe a third point now, I forget how many points I've already kind of said. She said something on the lines of maybe we can retain better talent here. I don't think any Bitcoiner is going to go work for the Fed, but I like the wishful thinking here. This does kind of lean to the idea of this being an acceptance phase. It's like, all right, this Bitcoin thing isn't going away. As hard as we try to kill this thing, as hard as we try to kind of scare people away from using this thing, it is catching on a lot faster than we could have ever imagined. We should probably get used to transacting with this thing at the very least, or, maybe try to get on that Pelosi train. Maybe we can at the very least just save in this Bitcoin thing if it's going to continue to go up. Maybe we could capitalize on this a little bit. So 2 interesting things. Of course, the Basel Committee, which it basically proposes stuff to the Bank of International Settlements. We all know what happened last week. They're trying to basically tag and bag Bitcoin and say there's tainted Bitcoin, non-tainted Bitcoin. We have on the same day, basically, Google Wallet or Google App Store saying you probably, you're going to get banned if you have a non-custodial wallet app on our platform. Now, the following week, they're like, actually, we should probably embrace this thing. It seems like the knee bending is happening at warp speed here. And we just got 2 big signals from, one of the biggest banking committees. Again, they cover about 90% of the world's banks. And then the US Fed saying, we should probably let our staff members hold this thing. Like if we're going to, be the big bad boogeyman, the police here, you should probably know how to use it. Like we should probably understand what this thing is before we try to regulate it, before we try to cancel it. So look, one of these stories together is probably like a nothing burger, but them combined is just showing the banks are bending the knee. They're starting to see the writing on the wall, and they realize, hey, if we don't adapt to this thing, we are going to get left in the dust here. And that doesn't even account for all the things we're seeing from Scott Bessent, kind of embracing stablecoins. He's been echoing since July. Trillions of dollars are coming into stablecoin markets. There's a new push right now for, of course, stablecoins because they buy treasuries. We know the U.S. government is hurting because no one wants to buy treasuries. And now all of this is coming together, in one road here. And it's all going to go into Bitcoin. Whether they know it or not, all that capital is going to eventually end up in Bitcoin. Anyone with a brain doesn't want to hold treasuries right now. They see the markets, they see what we see, and they're like, yeah, I should probably hold this Bitcoin thing. So I think they capitulated twice here. They're like, yeah, we need to use this because we're going to regulate this, or, we're going to police the world around this Bitcoin thing. And then they're like, yeah, maybe our staff members shouldn't be holding treasuries because these Bitcoiners are going to be the ones with all the money here. So maybe we should allow them to hold some Bitcoin. Anyways, my tinfoil hat is off here. I'm going to pass it to Nico. Nico, you've been known here on the show for saying that it's okay for the Trump administration to hold some Bitcoin. It's aligned incentives. Are we seeing aligned incentives from the Fed now with Bitcoin, dude? Like, no. Are we being co-opted, or are they bending the knee? Are we winning so hard, or are they co-opting us? What's the tug of war here?
No, so I really recommend you guys watching my interview with Caitlin Long. And Caitlin Long has really been in the vanguard of this because her bank, Custodia Bank, was one of the first banks to apply for a federal banking charter, and it would be a Bitcoin native bank based out of Wyoming. I believe Crockett is applying for a federal banking charter as well. And the Fed essentially denied her federal banking charter, and that order came from the White House. And the Fed ever since, you can make a very strong argument that they've been acting politically. Now, one of the Fed members actually resigned the other day because originally in the beginning of the year, it was the Democrats outnumbered the Republicans. And we know the Democratic Party the Democratic Party's stance on Bitcoin that I don't think is monolithic, but a lot of it is driven by the Elizabeth Warren camp. And we know how Elizabeth Warren feels about the entire industry. She wants a central bank digital currency, but I think there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes. Do I think that resignation of a Democrat Fed board member was a coincidence? No. Do I think it's a coincidence that that Trump showed up to the Federal Reserve with Jerome Powell and just kind of embarrassed Jerome Powell about how much money they were spending on the Fed building? Like it was like $3.1 billion. Like what type of building is that, bro? Like a $3.1 billion renovation? Like holy cow, like what is that? That's crazy. And of course, like this is the art of the deal. This is maneuvering. This is very similar to, when Trump received Putin in Russia, like he came in or like Putin walked off the plane on the red carpet and there was a B-2 bomber and F-35s flying right overhead. Like it was a show of force. And Trump's known for this. He's known for making deals, right? And what we have to understand is that even though it shouldn't be like this, but the reality is it is like this. Even though Trump was duly elected by the American people and the Republicans won the House and the Senate, there is still a bureaucratic class that I believe runs the country. Some people call it the deep state. I call it the administrative state. But essentially what it is, it's an unelected bureaucracy that remains employed regardless of who's president. And it seems like they run the country, right? And that's really the curtain that's being pulled, the curtain that's being exposed. And they have a tremendous amount of influence over regulations, right? And I think, excuse me, I think a lot of the initial hostility from the Federal Reserve came from that. It came from that bureaucracy. And you guys have to remember that bureaucracy is not only funded by taxpayers. That bureaucracy is directly funded by the money printer, right? And if Bitcoin is to succeed, if Bitcoin migrates to becoming a global reserve currency and, countries start, essentially adopting a Bitcoin standard, the inevitable result of that is smaller government because it puts a check on government spending. And if government can't spend, government can't grow. Government doesn't produce anything, right? So, but again, it goes back to what I was saying about the 5 stages of grief, right? There's a reason Satoshi disappeared. There's a reason he left. And it's the same reason that the samurai wallet guys, even though realistically what they did, and again, I'm not a legal expert or anything, I'm just giving my personal opinion. They wrote open source software. Are they responsible for people using it for illicit means? That's like making the same argument that gun manufacturers are responsible for people using guns for illicit purposes, or car manufacturers are responsible for car accidents, or, plane manufacturers. Like it's like, excuse me, that's the same argument that essentially is being made. So, to kind of weave this back in, what I think you're seeing is the 5 stages of grief. Like Bitcoin. There's something.
Wow, he's dying on stream.
But what Bitcoin exposes is that it exposes incentives and exposes the world to basically like, look, guys, you had a good run. Money is possible without the state. Money is better without the state, and the state, has empowered itself for having that monopoly on money. That wasn't originally part of the social contract. Originally, when the gold seizure happened in the 1930s by FDR, the infamous 6102 order that Bitcoiners all know about, the justification of that was to stabilize markets. But essentially, FDR seized all this gold, and they gave essentially the promise was that they were going to give paper backed by gold in return. They took all that gold, they built Fort Knox. Fort Knox we haven't seen if that gold is in Fort Knox since the 1970s. It's very similar to the Bitcoin that the US government owns. We still don't know how much Bitcoin they own. They haven't made that public, right? So we kind of have to take their word for it. We know that that's not the only way of doing things, because Nayib Bukele, again, the first country that made Bitcoin legal tender, the world's most popular president, their reserves are public. You can literally see how much Bitcoin El Salvador has. Anyone could see it, right? So this is what Bitcoin is doing. It's exposing the world to an alternative system. But that alternative system is fighting back, and it has a tremendous amount of power. But I think Bitcoin's eventually going to win, because that previous system, that legacy system, is a system that empowers few at the expense of the many, where Bitcoin is a more equitable and equal system, right? It regardless of whether, you're a pleb that holds 0.01 Bitcoin, or you're Michael Saylor that personally owns 10,000 Bitcoin and his company holds 630,000 Bitcoin. From a percentage return, if Bitcoin goes up 10%, you're equally going to benefit, right? And Michael Saylor doesn't have more influence over the Bitcoin network than that pleb, right? So yeah, this is a pivotal shift in human history, and it's going to be tumultuous. I mean, the only thing that I can compare it to is the separation of church and state, right? That was a very tumultuous time. You had the French Revolution. It wasn't exactly, the most smooth transition in systems, right? So this is what's happening right now. You're living through history. You're living through the separation of money and state, and obviously the incumbents are not too happy about it. Anyways, Opti, I'm going to pass it on to you while I drink some water.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't have eaten those cookies. Anyways, Shane, what's your thoughts on the Fed governor saying that staff members should be holding Bitcoin?
I love it, man. I mean, kind of going back to some of the commentary about, the Fed and wanting some of the comments about being more educated about the asset, what it is, how it works, the benefits, et cetera. If you zoom out and you actually look at who are the three banking regulators in the country, the Fed is one of the banking regulators, right? Yep. So the Fed, the FDIC, and the OCC, that is who manages all of the banking institutions from a regulatory standpoint. Well, okay. Now go to conversations you hear about the term pristine collateral, right? If you guys don't know who CJ Konstantinos is, I'm sure everybody does. But go listen to him talk about pristine collateral and how Bitcoin fits into the banking system. The missing link there currently, though, is there are no risk and underwriting models within the traditional banking system that actually value Bitcoin properly based on its future CAGR, right? And so if the Fed and if Fed board members are saying things like this, to me, that means they want to learn more about this asset so that they can understand those long-term implications and figure out how to regulate it so those risk and underwriting models can evolve to properly value Bitcoin and its future potential and future growth, et cetera. And I think that's when we'll start seeing some of these spreads, some of these borrowing rates on Bitcoin come down. Right now, you're talking, anywhere from 8, 9, 10, 15% to borrow against your Bitcoin. Well, once the traditional banking, underwriters and risk models and things of that nature evolve, and once there's some more regulatory frameworks and other rules built around that, I think that's when you start seeing, the pristine collateral form of Bitcoin emerge in some of these lending and other more traditional banking products.
Incredible insights. That was great. That was awesome, Shane. It goes to show, like, when you work at a bank and you work in the belly of the beast and you become a Bitcoiner, you do get to see, the 5D chess being played out in real time. So that was great, man. I absolutely love it. All right, guys, we have a jam-packed show for you guys. But before we move on, I do want to remind you guys to smash the like button, subscribe to Simply Bitcoin on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. And of course, drop a comment on this video. What do you guys think of the show? And we'll keep it moving. Nico, you want to take it up from here now, man?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I do want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Simply Bitcoin is powered by our partners and our sponsors. So if you guys want to support the show, check them out. We are very choosy. We're very picky on who we choose to partner with here at Simply Bitcoin. And our lead sponsor is the best place to build your Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/simply. You put in your email address. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to get started. The reason we recommend Bitcoin Well here at Simply Bitcoin is that it's a non-custodial platform, meaning when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. They don't even give you the ability to leave your money on the exchange. If you're a higher net worth individual looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. It's tailored for high family offices, high net worth individuals, trusts, organizations. You can speak to their team today by going to bitcoinwell.com/OTC. It's a tailored white glove service. Again, they'll help you from A to B, buying the Bitcoin, selling the Bitcoin, and then putting that Bitcoin into self-custody. And you're going to want to stay tuned till the end of the show because we are going to be giving away some sats from Bitcoin Well with the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. So stay tuned till the end of the show. You might have an opportunity to win up to 1 million sats today. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. We have tons to talk about. We will be right back in just a second. I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates. Instead of just writing them down on paper, paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store. All right, everybody, we are here. Scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you directly to the StampSeed website. Don't write down your seed words on paper. Stamp them into titanium with the StampSeed kit. Go to stampseed.com. Use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $114,100. Block height, 910,917. Sats per dollar, 876 sats per dollar. Market cap, 2.27 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 9.56%. Decline from all-time high, negative 8.3%. Realized monetary inflation, 0.84%. Continuing to take fiat currencies to absolute school. Anyways, these AI videos have been making the rounds. TFTC has been killing it with them, and our boys over at Bitcoin Well dropped one yesterday, and let's check it out. I thought it was very wholesome.
Observe, if you will, the 1950s, an impossible phenomenon in today's standards, a single salary sustaining a large family. The American dream in its glorious form, a home, a family, a car built upon a single wage. A period where diligent work promised genuine, tangible security. But like a relentless tide, subtle forces began their work. The unrestrained reach of government spending and the complex machinations of central banking unleashed an invisible erosion. Inflation. This steady debasement diminished the fruits of labor, year by year, relentlessly. This quiet, persistent debasement culminated in moments of profound upheaval. None more stark than the 2008 financial crisis, a dramatic demonstration of a system stretched to its limits. The American dream was no more. But when a structure falters so profoundly, the process of creative destruction often takes place. From the digital age, a new construct emerged. Satoshi Nakamoto introduced Bitcoin, an ingenious design offering a mechanism to reclaim financial independence, a structure inherently resistant to the very debasement that destroyed that way of life. And so, we look to the future. By 2050, this innovation is poised to reshape our financial landscape. The aspiration for a secure, prosperous future, once seemingly lost, is remarkably re-emerging. This is the next chapter, a world fundamentally reshaped, built upon sound money, where the American dream lives once more.
Nice, very nice. Much better than the Coinbase one, bro. At least it wasn't a musical. God damn. That made me, you know, it gave me hope. We didn't lose like 50% of our viewership. It seems like you guys were enjoying the video.
Yeah, that one was way better.
That
And
one
I'm
was way
sure
better.
they spent way less money than Coinbase did. But hey, what do I know?
Yeah, dude. So, but it's true. I mean, they made some really good points, some valid points, man, regarding, you know, like, dude, like, it's not cool that, you know, our generation is poorer than our parents. It's not cool. Like, every generation should get wealthier as the world gets wealthier. But I think under this fiat standard, you know, it's kind of, you know, put things upside down. And I think that's what's happening. You know, I think that's what people are feeling. You know, that video started off with like someone in the chat. I love musicals. But someone, you know, it's that video started off with like, look, the 1950s, dude. Like, you know, you used to be able to live off one salary. Like, why can't you do that anymore? That's a really good point. Right? Like, what's changed from the 1950s to now? Like, technology is better, productivity is better. Everyone's a genius. Like with ChatGPT or Grok or Gab or any of the demons that Opti talks about, you can ask them anything you want to help you write a better email, you know, help you, you know, the grammar, you know, like anything. And the thing will do it like instantaneously. So there's absolutely no reason as to why, you know, compared to more than 70 years ago, you know, people's affordability, people should be living better, not worse, right? So anyhow, that's my take on that. I think the team over at Bitcoin Well did an incredible job putting that together. I want to get Shane's take on it, and then Opti.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was cool. I mean, compared to the Coinbase one, yeah, I mean, Coinbase is Coinbase, but I'm a Bitcoiner, so I much prefer Bitcoin Well and their focus, you know, just centrally on Bitcoin. But it hits on something that's important to me, because like one thing that I've struggled with is orange pilling my friends and family. And I have found that through the, I don't know, 20 Bitcoin books and investing and monetary history and the Federal Reserve and how money works and all the things, right? All the pods, watching Luke and Lynn and Lavish and all the people. It's like, okay, how do you distill that into a story that actually makes sense and you can have like an elevator pitch that connects with people? And I really feel like that's what hits home with people, is just getting them to at least understand the high level impacts of this whole monetary inflation, you know, system that we live in, monetary debasement, kind of the history of it and how it shows up in our lives and some of the impacts to our lives. You know, Mahler's had a fantastic speech at Prague this year where he actually took that approach, right? He said, my girlfriend told me not to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I thought it was the best presentation he's ever given, because he didn't just talk about Bitcoin. He talked about why the money's broken and how that shows up in our society, you know, with people, with families, with health, with happiness, with education, with employment, all the things. And I think that's been the most effective way for me to try to orange pill people, is to get them to at least understand some of that at a fundamental level. Because once you get the problems, well, what's next? Okay, now I kind of want to understand the solutions. Boom, now we can geek way out on Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Amen to that. I think that was beautifully put. Opti, what's your take on this? Better than the musical, right?
I mean, anything's better than the musical, Nico. Let's be honest here. That was brutal. Dude, and not only did
we lost like 50% of our viewership.
We lost like 100 viewers on that.
I was wondering, I was like, all right, well, let's play this video. Let's see. And no, the viewers went up. So it seems like it resonated with the audience. Opti.
Yeah, no, I mean, like Shane was saying, I've noticed this as well. I've been saying that on this show for a long time now, that a lot of the orange pilling that we do with our friends and family aren't as effective as we think they are, is because we don't pick the right pain points here, and we're not meeting them where they are. And we usually start with, you know, the Fed and money printer and stuff, but like, that is even way too far down the line for people to really understand. Like, remember, a lot of people can't think in second order effects or second order thinking here. They just think of the instant moment that they're currently living at. They're just looking at the problems in their own lives. They don't need a whole historical account of all the central banks and, you know, what money printing has done to money, or, you know, starting in 1913. That's just like too far for most people to relate to. But what Bitcoin Well did here, I think, was very good. Like, not only was it cinematic and it felt like a movie trailer, but it is identifying the problems that people are talking about currently today. If you talk to most people, I'm sure if you did a poll out there, you just start asking random people, and they're comfortable with you, because you can't just like ask strangers like, what's your biggest problem in life right now? They're like, get away from me. Who are you? Like, you stink, dude. Get a new pair of shoes. What are you talking about? Like, hey, you're homeless. Why are you asking me about my own problems? You probably have some more. No, I'm trolling. They would probably say a lot of the things that Bitcoin Well just hit on is like, there is a crisis going on right now in a lot of different factors of our society. And yes, to us, it's very obvious that it comes from the money. But until you can kind of, you know, get them emotionally attached to what the problem is that they're personally feeling and what the solutions are. Yeah, I am not. I'm actually not homeless anymore. They're not going to really dive deep into Bitcoin. I mean, I was thinking about my Bitcoin story this morning, like how I got into Bitcoin, and that's what happened to me. I watched some videos, you know, like I was poor at the time. I was having a rough time in my life, and I was looking for a solution. And now I think everyone as a whole is kind of getting to that point. Like, we've been wondering, why is no one buying Bitcoin? I've been saying it's just because no one has any money right now. Like, everyone's broke. Like, people can't buy groceries right now. People can barely pay rent. They're working more jobs and they're getting paid less, and they don't know what's going on. And this is when you kind of talk about Bitcoin. It's like, hey, look, you know, I know you don't have much to save, but what you do have, you should be saving in Bitcoin. You got to hit them at their pain points. So I think they did a great job. I really enjoy that. So maybe AI won't take our jobs, Nico, but they might take the people that are making commercials jobs, because I'm pretty sure they only spent a couple $100 on that versus that musical that was probably a couple of million, and that was trash.
Yeah, I mean, that musical, I mean, maybe it resonated with people, bro. You know, it's crazy the differences between something that Bitcoiners make versus something that, you know, an altcoin casino makes, right? Look at the differences. So we do have a GoFundMe for Opti. It's on Geyser. So you can donate some sats.
No, the GoFundMe is send it to my Bitcoin wallet.
So
no, I'm trolling.
All right, everybody, we're gonna get to the news. We have tons to talk about today. Google is buying Bitcoin miners. Take a look at that. And also, we're gonna be talking about the cycle. People are dazed and confused. People don't know what's going on. So I have takes from Magoo. I have takes from Whale Panda. I have takes from Anthony Scaramucci, Josh Mandel. People are just kind of like, you know, they're not feeling really good right now. And the reason reason for that is simple. We started the year, Trump's inauguration, at $109,000 Bitcoin. 8 months later, we're only sitting at $114,000 per coin. So I think it has a lot of people, scratching and saying, is Bitcoin the boomer coin now? Is Bitcoin like watching the S&P 500? But that's cool because, like Kramer has a job, Opti, so I think we'll be fine. So anyways, guys, you're going to want to stay tuned. And then during the culture segment, we're going to be talking to our guests, our very special guest today, Shane. He has a retirement calculator. You guys are going to want to stick around for that. And we're going to be giving away some sats. So guys, we're going to be right back in just a couple seconds.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
Everybody, we are back. So I would say the big news is Google buys 4% of TeraWulf, and it's massive. So they're backing a $1.8 billion in infrastructure financing for high performance AI computing at TeraWulf's facility in New York. In return, it secured a 10-year contract to run AI workloads, plus warrants for 8% ownership in the company. And it goes on to say that a lot of people are perhaps a little bit confused, and they're just like saying like, okay, like, wait a second. So like, isn't TeraWulf a Bitcoin mining company? And the answer is yes. But what a lot of Bitcoin mining companies are doing right now, because essentially they're experts at building, high performance data centers, they're pivoting to AI, right? Our personal favorite, of course, is HIVE. They're the best in the business. But I thought this was noteworthy that Google is buying a portion of a Bitcoin miner. Anyways, so I do want to talk about the cycle because I think a lot of people are just kind of like, demoralized, like they're getting kind of bored. They don't know what the F is going on. Here's Anthony Scaramucci. He has some thoughts about where he thinks Bitcoin's going towards the end of the year. And then I have some thoughts with some other community leaders as well. And then we'll do kind of like a round table discussion about it. So let's check out this clip.
Listen, there's been pain and euphoria in the Bitcoin markets over the last 5 years. I think what's happening now is lots of consolidation and institutional adoption. So if you went to a conference like this 3 years ago, it was mostly retail investors and CEOs working in the layer 1 blockchain space. Today, it's lots more institutional investors. So that's finally starting to happen. If you look at the numbers on something like the BlackRock ETF, the IBIT ETF, you can see now, Andrew, there's lots of institutions coming in. So what's interesting is that some of the whales have been selling. So I know I've seen your interviews with Michael Novogratz and the 80,000 Bitcoins that sold last month. And so there's a consolidation story happening. There's a change of ownership story happening. But I think we're going higher just because you just look at the math. There's just way more demand than issued supply of Bitcoin or existing overall supply in the marketplace. So we still maintain our price target between 180 and 200,000 by year end. And I think that's a cautious price target, by the way. I think there are people that are way above us, those levels. But I just think it's a function of buying in only 450 Bitcoin.
So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys still believe we're going to hit 200K by the end of the year? I mean, Bitcoin has this way of just, kind of doing things that no one expects, right? It crushes expectations, but sometimes, it does the exact opposite when everyone is kind of depressed and sad and, we're in the pits of a bear market, and then all of a sudden, we're in euphoria phase. It tends to drive a little bit some people crazy, like me and Opti. It explains a lot of me and Opti's behavior. Anyways, here's Josh Mandel. Josh Mandel infamously, or better said, famously, said, he predicted 444K Bitcoin. Josh Mandel got famous for being very, very accurate with a previous prediction to the day, right? So he predicted a price and he said a day, and then it was exactly accurate, which was like completely surreal. And then he just came on to the scene out of nowhere. And here are some of his thoughts. I still believe in 444K Bitcoin. And I already said inclusion is a done deal. People underestimate the extent to which Bitcoin is faded. Individual noise can manipulate the interior, but the monthly closes are when the policing is heaviest. MSTR is a sale, which can catch the winds of indexation, and indexers transact like they are short gamma. They have no ability to consider valuation measures like MNAV. So, and then this is a response to Joey Football. And this is a response to Josh Mandel. And he says, I have made only one fund purchase of any significance in years, the ski boat. I felt guilty about it, but it rides better than MSTR. Oh, snap. Joey Football says, so what do you think the end game is here then? MSTR just dies? And then that's when Josh Mandel replied, no, MSTR is not going anywhere, which is exactly what I said on yesterday's show. But the smaller Bitcoin treasury companies, I do believe a lot of them, when this cycle's over, when the bear inevitably hits, a lot of them are going to go poof. But I think the big three, Nakamoto, Jack Mallers 21, and of course MicroStrategy, they're not going anywhere. I saw Tyler Durden post something. I thought it was really funny, which is like, MicroStrategy is too big to fail. I mean, they just have first mover advantage. They have so much Bitcoin. They were able to get some of the most favorable deals. So like, unless Bitcoin crashes to like $1,000, I don't think MSTR is going anywhere. We also got a super chat from a fan. Appreciate the $11.11 Canadian shekels for Opti's
we got another one, Nico.
Steak dinner fund. And could you pull up the other one? From Ron P, $10. Opti needs money. Please send super chats daily, Monday through Friday.
Guys, I am not homeless. Nico was trolling, okay? But I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
So this is all going to getting Opti outside of a bridge in Miami, and we are getting him in a nice apartment. Anyhow, I do want to pass it on to Shane. Shane, what are your thoughts on this, bro? What's going on with this bull market, brother? Because what realistically happens the year after the halving is Bitcoin tends to pump. That seems like that hasn't been the case this time.
Yeah, and I'm a left-brained guy, so like I look at everything in sequential, rational, scientific, metrics-oriented ways. And the one thing that I can't get out of my mind is that the past 3 cycles, the overnight or the Fed funds rate has been like we were in a zero interest rate policy regime, so borrowing costs were basically nothing. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that credit card rates were cheap and the ability to refinance your home mortgage was easy, and consumer liquidity conditions were extremely loose. People had easy access to cheap money. And then you fast forward to this cycle and like, yeah, sure, it still follows the same halving, the same presidential election, all the things, but look at the monetary policy, right? We've been historically high, with the Fed's rate hiking policies, to tamp down the inflation after COVID. And that has prolonged, I think, this cycle. I could be wrong, but like I can't stop thinking about just how different this monetary policy regime is compared to all of the other cycles where we've been at this time. So what does that mean? For me, it means, well, if we are going to get a retail driven euphoria that gives us a blow off top like every other past cycle, well, then the consumer liquidity conditions have to be much looser. People have to be able to go out and roll all their debt, push up their credit card balances, consolidate their credit cards into cheaper cards with higher credit limits, refinance their mortgages, go buy new homes, and kind of just get the liquidity, resources sloshing around in the consumer sector a little bit more. Because right now, like, people are broke and they're not really pushing the price up at the margins at this point in the cycle like they have in the past 3 cycles. Or so that is my theory. And of course, I could be completely wrong, which if I am, please come dunk on me on Twitter.
Opti, what's your take? I think that was a very spot on.
Yeah,
from
no,
Shane,
that
as someone said in the audience.
100%. I agree with what Shane was saying. Is like, last couple of cycles we were in a easy money regime, and now the money is tightening up, and we actually saw another metric drop. I believe it was last night, but it's been circulating Twitter this morning. Like, the reverse repo markets are the driest they've been in a long time. So where the money has been parked when there was too much liquidity is now drying up, which means the liquidity is drying up globally right now, or at least in the US. We're talking the US reverse repo markets right now. And so if you can kind of connect these two, Bitcoin's going to need basically a new injection of liquidity from somewhere else. And we don't know where that's coming from. That's like the big question here is like, will it come from retail? Will it come from the corporate treasuries? Will it come from the nation states? Like, essentially some new like bulk buyers need to come in here, whether they're buying in huge sizes, or it's a wave of retail coming in here. There's not, the liquidity is drying up right now. And of course, we all know Bitcoin reacts to global liquidity, or you could just argue it reacts to the US liquidity here. But that's what we're seeing. We're seeing not only are people broke, but the free money is not there anymore. And this is probably why the price of Bitcoin is so stagnant. And I don't know if you pulled it up, Nico. Sorry, I was chatting. I was being very distracted by the chat here. We're having a really good time over here. But did you pull up the whale panda chart? I don't know if this is true.
Oh, let me
pull that up. I don't know if this is true, but it could explain what is going on here. So read the tweet, or here, I'll read it. So whale panda, again, a notorious shitcoiner, but he is kind of Bitcoin adjacent. I think he's complaining because he's probably got huge bags of shitcoins and not Bitcoin right now. But he goes, there are no Bitcoin buyers in this market, absolutely zero. Or if they are, they aren't buying actual Bitcoin, which really leads to the idea of paper Bitcoin summer. And what exactly are we looking? Can you full screen this, Nico? So I can read kind of these indicators here and what are we looking at here? You're too zoomed in. What's the got up top? What's it saying on top left, Nico? I'm blind. I can't read that. Oh, he's looking at volume here. So you can see what US Tech 100 cash. It's drying up. There's no volume coming in, guys. So we just don't have buyers right now. So as much as everyone's been saying, hey, they're selling fake Bitcoin or paper Bitcoin summer, it could just be there's just not that many buyers in the market, dude. It's just us. We're the only ones here. Remember the articles there used to be like a couple of months ago, maybe 6-9 months ago, of all the Bitcoin tourists? The Ponzi is over. All the Bitcoin tourists are gone, guys. No one is here as a quote, the tourists here. It's literally just us. Like, it's only Bitcoiners that have been here for a while. And we're no match in comparison to the hundreds of thousands of coins that are hitting the exchange right now. Even Sailor is in a match here. And if you look at what Sailor's doing, like, it seems like even his liquidity is drying up. Like, he's not able to, withdraw from the ATM like he used to. So we need a new catalyst to make this thing start ripping, guys.
I think eventually it's going to happen. I'm very bullish about Q3 and Q4. I think this is just going through the motions, and again, the longer Bitcoin goes sideways, the more explosive the move eventually. Again, guys, it's infinity divided by 21 million. Like, it's incredibly obvious where this goes. It's just where this goes. It's just a waiting game. That's really what it's about. So anyways, guys, we're going to be right back in just a second. We're going to hit the culture segment, and we're going to be talking to our guest, bitcoinmath.org, the creator, Shane Crockett. So we're going to be back. Here we go.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, bitcoinben.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Ben's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank, and you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys, tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth, and join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinben.io, join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
All right, everybody, we are back, and we got our boy Shane here. And guys, we're going to be talking about how much Bitcoin you need to retire.
Yeah, let's start with Shane, of course, creator of BitcoinMath.org. Let's just lay the foundation here. What is Bitcoin Math for our audience that isn't familiar with your work? And then we'll go into, the idea that has been catching, like storm here, like fire, dude. The guy who said yesterday that I butcher all the metaphors, he's so right. Euphemisms, metaphors, I butcher them all the time. Anyway, Shane, what is BitcoinMath.org? What are you trying to do here? And then we'll go into kind of the topic that everyone loves.
Yeah, absolutely. So the platform is really born out of my struggle to educate my friends and family about Bitcoin and why they should care. And kind of combining that with some of the things I like to do with math, with data, with sheets, with lots of different Google tools, things of that nature. So it's really like a fun, interactive way to come and model different financial use cases, different scenarios, to just plug in your own values from your own life, make it personal, and have like real world dynamic data-driven outputs presented to you so you can actually see like, oh, okay, how would this compare to how would buying Bitcoin compare to putting cash in a CD earning 3.5% for 3 years? How would Bitcoin in my retirement compare to S&P 500 stocks earning 11% if I think Bitcoin's going to return 25 over the next 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is? And just makes those kinds of scenarios much easier to actually get your hands on and mess around with, whether you're on a tablet, your desktop, laptop, or a smartphone. Like, it's easy, it's drag and drop, it's dynamic, and anybody can really, use the tools to model and interact with those kinds of scenarios and use cases as they see fit. And so, whether it's a curious pleb that just wants to geek out and kind of mess around with some data and some numbers, or whether it's, a teaching institution of some kind, or an educator or influencer or advisor or whatever it is, and they're trying to convey to their audience or their customer or their client or whatever, right, about, hey, here's some reasons why you might want to pay attention to Bitcoin. We've been talking a lot about retirement. Did you know? And then just be able to take them to like a more fun, interactive experience that helps them see like the bigger picture, right? You guys know, I mean, you're on X, you guys interact with people all day, every day. Like, there's so much talk and there's so much opinion and there's so much subjectiveness to all these things we talk about. It'd be great if more people would just show up with facts and data and math and actually start supporting things with a little bit more evidence and data, as opposed to just everything always being, kind of subjective and feeling overly opinionated. So that's kind of the underlying thesis and the spirit of why I created the platform. It has evolved. It was just calculators, but now there's like a TLDR, downloadable ebook where I kind of synthesized everything I've learned about monetary history and some of the painful milestones that we've gone through, whether it's the gold confiscation of 34 or Bretton Woods or the abandonment of the gold standard in 71, COVID, GFC, you name it, right? But like, it's taken me 5 years to learn all that stuff, and dozens of books and thousands of hours of watching shows like you guys and some of your amazing guests. And I try to just condense that into like a 15, 20-minute read that you could do from your smartphone over lunch. And then there's other resources on there too. Like, there's tools that we trust from Bitcoin-focused companies to really help people get started, right? Like, okay, I found your site. I learned a little bit. This is really interesting. How would I buy Bitcoin? How would I manage Bitcoin in cold storage and set up a multi-sig? How would I borrow against my Bitcoin? How would I earn Bitcoin rewards, whatever it is? We put a simple strategy playbook up there as well. And then some of our favorite educational resources, right? Your guys' pod, your guys' X accounts, and tons of others that we follow on X, books that we've read that we've found to be super insightful, training and certification platforms, you name it. So there's just a ton of educational resources there as well. So anybody starting from, I don't know anything about Bitcoin, to I know everything and I want to teach Bitcoin, and really everything in between.
Love it, Shane. Sorry, I'm laughing at the chat. I'm just a moon boy. Love it. All right, so Shane, before we kind of mess with the calculator, we're going to mess with the retirement calculator. There's other calculators there, guys. Go to bitcoinmath.org. You did go on our boy Robin's podcast, and you said something interesting, because I know when Nico and I and even Luke would do the retirement calculators, a lot of the people in the audience are like, this is demoralizing. I can't ever get to hundreds of Bitcoin to retire. But you have a tweet here, or rather Robin's tweet here is you quoting you saying you just need 1.9 Bitcoin to retire in 5 years. So before we mess with the calculator here, and you guys could give some metrics and stuff for that, how did you come to this number?
So that number was actually from Robin inputting his data into the calculator.
So he doxed
himself? So he went in and said, well, yeah, he went in and he said, well, okay, if I need this much money every month to live, and I think inflation's going to go up by this much, and I think I'll borrow at this rate. And then he's pretty bullish on Bitcoin. So he set his CAGR pretty far out. He's, Saylor's bull case 37%. So in that scenario, right, if you're super bullish on Bitcoin and you don't need a ton of money each month to pay your bills, then based on how I've set up the model to show a 30% LTV loan and 50% LTV loan really in perpetuity, he only needed 1.9 Bitcoin to retire.
Amazing. Okay, let's play with this calculator. So which calculator were you using? Was it the cash savings or the retirement savings?
So go down to the
This one?
third section there. Nope, keep going down.
Oh, this
Yeah,
one.
expand that. Yeah, click on that, and then you've got retire on Bitcoin.
Let's go. Okay, here we go. All right.
Yep. So there's an overview up top, but I mean, this one's pretty simple. I mean, you're just going to key in your monthly expenses that you need to basically receive as income, right, in the form of a loan. You're going to key in the basic loan APR and then what you think your year-over-year expense increase will be, whether that's because you're living more lavishly or because of inflation or a combination of the two. And then once you've keyed those values in, you just drag the CAGR bar to the growth projection that you want to estimate and see the outputs for, and the results will
Okay,
appear.
awesome. All right. So I think we should crowdsource this for the chat. Or Nico, maybe we can pull
Just
up
put
some
one.
average numbers.
Just put one, dude.
What? Put one what?
Put one Bitcoin and then put the average.
Oh, we need monthly expenses.
Well, this is going to tell you. This is going to tell you how much Bitcoin based on the money you need to live each month.
So
What's
let's
monthly
put
expenses? Like
let's
4 or
put
5K?
seven. So let's put like 7,500 for a family. Put 7,500
For a family. There we go. Loan APR.
What do we put there?
That's
It's what you're going to pay to borrow against your Bitcoin. So, I mean, I keep it simple and I just put in 10, but this will depend on the lender. It might be 8, might be 12, might be 15,
let's
but
go 10. Let's
10's
go 10.
easy.
Year-over-year expense increase. What's like the average for what, since we're doing like a family here? Nico, we've had that number before. Was it like 80K or something like that?
The average income you're saying?
Year-over-year expenses for like what you do, a family, single family.
This will just be a percent increase.
Oh, net
so
increase.
I just
Okay.
I keep it simple with like 5%.
Okay.
But you know, if you think inflation's actually 7 to 10, then that might be a more relevant
Well,
number.
I
for your
do
scenario.
in fact think it's it's closer to 7 to 10. We'll go conservative. We'll go 7 here. All right, chat. How bullish are we? What is the Bitcoin CAGR? Is it 10, 20, 30, 40? I know it's been 50 the last 5 years. Are we going to maintain that? So I'm going to crowdsource this, guys. What do you guys think the CAGR is going to be? Actually, we'll start with just like a very a very bearish CAGR here of 10%. Let's see. How do you read this? All right, so that's high. 10% CAGR. Let's see, 5 years.
So you're gonna, if you think Bitcoin's gonna CAGR at 10 and you need to borrow $7,500 a month against it to live your life, then you're going to struggle to retire on your Bitcoin, right? And this shows you that because you're borrowing so much more rapidly than the underlying Bitcoin asset is appreciating. And because these values are kept at 30% loan to value and 50% loan to value, well, you're constantly going to be borrowing more than your Bitcoin's appreciating. That's why this curve goes up. But if you go back to the CAGR, now just click it on Saylor's bear case 21% there.
Wait, that's 22. Whatever,
So
that's 22%, but
yeah. So here you'll see the curve, normalize and flatten out, because eventually what happens is the amount of money that you're borrowing against your stack is actually lower, albeit marginally at first, but eventually it becomes, materially lower than the amount that your Bitcoin is appreciating because of that compounding factor. And that's why this peaks out after, say, 7 years and starts to come down.
okay. So now everyone in the chat's getting bullish. So they say 35%. Let's move this up to 35. Yep. Let's see. Okay. All right. So year 1.
Yeah, and so the same thing has happened there, right? This gets much steeper and the curve gets pulled forward. Why? Because although you're borrowing more than the value of your Bitcoin is appreciating up front, because of that compounding factor, after year 4, your Bitcoin is actually appreciating more than the dollars that you're borrowing against it. And therefore the net effect is your LTV is coming down instead of continuously increasing.
Interesting. All right. Now the chat did get super bullish. Let's see which one's the most bullish. Bitcoin Barber, 43.7. We'll do. It's all right. They said 42 is the answer of the universe, so we'll go 42.
There it is.
All right. So year 20. There we go. Now we have the math. You can retire on 0.1 Bitcoin.
You can't retire.
Well, so the way this reads though is you're going to want to have the amount of Bitcoin the maximum amount of Bitcoin this represents, right? So in year one, or if you wanted to look at, so if you looked at year one, right, you only need, what is that, 3 Bitcoin to do this, to keep your LTV at 30 or 50%. But if you want to look ahead and see, okay, well, how much what's the maximum Bitcoin I would need to implement this strategy based on my estimates? Well, then you're going to want to look at year 4, right? It looks like it's year 4 that it peaks out at a little over 5 Bitcoin if you're doing a 30% LTV. And so that's kind of how this is set up, is to say, well, okay, if I want to look at a 20-year period and these are my expenses, this is my growth rate, and here's what I think Bitcoin will do, how much Bitcoin would I need to confidently retire and live off of it using a loan right now?
Yeah, and guys, you could check out too, go to ledin.io. You can use if you use the link. If you're looking for Bitcoin-backed loans, you get 0.25% off your first loan if you use that link.
All right,
but I will say,
super bullish. $89 million in 20 years.
I will say that careful with margin, ladies and gentlemen. Careful with margin, because I've heard some pretty bad stories. But yeah, I mean, this is Alejandro, looks like I'm not going to retire. But dude, look, regardless, your life is going to get cheaper. Your purchasing power is going to increase. And I love all these retirement calculators that are being built by the community, man. Someone in the chat. So all the variations show is that we need to get somewhere close to 6 BTC to retire if you slide that bar left and right. Is that true?
No, man. I mean, the inputs are what determine the outputs. So, if you need $7,500 a month to live your life and you're going to borrow at what was it, 10%, and you think inflation is going to be 7%, then the answer to that user's chat would be correct. Yes. But if you are borrowing, if you only need, say, $4 or $5 grand a month and you think inflation is going to be 2 or whatever, all of these outputs are dynamic and they're going to change. So for every year,
what if you're living large and you're spending $100,000 a month? Put it in there, Opti.
Pop it in.
Pop it in.
Do your thing.
All right, hold on. I did the first one. 5K, 10% APR, 7% year over year expense increase. It's looking like what's this number? You would need to have 1.93 Bitcoin starting in year 1 and a total of 4.68 peaking in year 5. And you would need to have Yeah, that works. All right, what are we doing? 100K? 100K a month. That's crazy talk. What's a loan APR? If you have that much money, I'm sure you could get a lower APR, but we'll leave it at 10.
All right. So how much? Go
with a
down.
CAGR of 30.
Go down.
Let's see. You would need 38.5 Bitcoin to start.
Oh,
and it would peak at what? Almost 100
on year 5. Interesting. Anyways,
Nico's over here.
Interesting. I have 0 Bitcoin. I lost an Bodhi accent. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to. My wife's in the back. She's like, "What?" If you guys enjoyed, we lost it all. If you guys enjoyed today's show, make sure to smash that like button. Go check out BitcoinMath.org by the creator Shane Crockett. He's our special guest for today, and of course, my legendary co-host, who's always optimistic, Optimus Fields. Guys, we'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode. Take it easy.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.